So, Mr. Hobbs, you've on your previous appearances on the podcast, you were you had a 70 miler and 200 Ks, right? We talked about Laurel Highlands.
Yep.
Which planted the seed for me to want to run Laurel Highlands, which I was so close to doing. And then we had 2 trips to Hellgate.
That's right.
And now we're here to talk about that. That all amounted to 100 miles in Massanutten.
Yeah.
So why do you hate running in Rochester?
I'm not sure there is a 100-miler in Rochester.
No, there's not.
Well, that's not true. There's one's close by, but they're on the canal path. I don't have a set thing for Virginia, per se. It's just been once I got down there for Hellgate, I wanted to go back again a second time, and it worked out that year. Going back from Massanutten was made somewhat easier because I know the trip. I've been down there a couple of times and was staring at the Massanutten range from an IHOP in last trip down to Hellgate. But
I didn't go to an IHOP. You went to an IHOP?
You didn't go to an IHOP?
Oh, we did.
We did. Everybody was not happy about that choice.
Yeah, I remember groaning.
I
remember groaning through the entire IHOP experience. So
yeah.
That's right.
But I think on the walk there and the walk back, we were
staring
under the
at
shadow of the mountains. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The decision to go down to Massanutten was not necessarily a decision driven by I love Virginia, I want to go back, but just seemed like the right race for the right reasons at the right time.
Well, one of the things you mentioned each time we went to Hellgate, you mentioned starting at 1 a.m. or midnight and running through these beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains and never being able to see the mountains you're running through.
Right. Also running through them in the wintertime, so even when the sun came up, it was pretty gray and bleak, and all the leaves were off the trees. And that was a nice part about returning down there from Massanutten. When we pulled off the highway, it had just rained and everything was so green and lush, and spring was 2 weeks ahead of time or something than it was in Rochester, and it was just so nice to be down there in the green.
Yeah. And so did you get your view of the Blue Ridge Mountains?
Oh, I did. There was a couple parts where it clouded up and rained during the day, so I didn't hit every view, but we got enough of them, and it was just nice to be down there when everything was live.
Right. So when you've been thinking about running a 100-miler for a long time.
Yeah.
When you first imagined your first 100-miler, what did you think it was going to be? What was the experience? If you could have had your little whiteboard and you drew up a picture and said, "This is what my first 100-miler experience would be."
I don't know. I don't know that I had very clear ideas, except that it would probably involve a lot of suffering.
I picture this whiteboard with this child drawing stick figures and just sad frowny face.
Yeah. I mean, I knew enough from being bonked at Hellgate and kind of trudging along at places and having other long race experience where you've gotten to a place where the feet hurt so much and it's kind of miserable to go on, that I just figured 100 there'd be no way to avoid 30 more miles of that, the worst part, and so that's kind of one thing that I was afraid of and wanted to wait to try it, to try to build up a lot of experience before moving up to that distance.
Were you seeking that out? Were you seeking? You had run a 70 miler and you had run 13 hour 100 Ks. Were you seeking what is the suffering beyond this point? Is that what you saw your first 100 miler as?
3, because you got to throw a Twisted Branch in there too.
Right, you got to throw a Twisted Branch and Zane Gray's in there too, right?
That was a long 50 miler. I don't think I was actively seeking out more suffering. I was kind of afraid that was going to be the result, but I was trying to do my best to prepare to make it as not miserable as possible, Yeah. So it was more, not so much that I thought that was inevitable, but I was afraid that was likely. So I was trying to prepare myself as best as possible.
Did you think your first 100-miler would be like at some point you're just trudging and you're dreary, and then like the two synapses that have never connected fire together and you go, I got it. I absolutely got it.
I don't know. No.
So what's the desire to run to go for 100 miles? Where's it come from?
You know, I don't know. If I was a kid growing up with, I knew people who did that kind of thing, and it didn't appeal to me. It wasn't something that I thought would be. I kind of thought it was crazy. So I don't know how I changed over the years and got to that point where I liked the idea. But once I started liking running longer and longer distances, there's something in the sport about the 100-miler. It's the marquee distance for ultra marathons and so forth. Now we have 200-milers and so forth.
135-milers.
And it's not clear why 100K isn't. It's just kind of the way the sport developed, I guess, and a nice round number.
Yeah.
But knowing that other people had faced up to that challenge, that it was another challenge beyond anything that I had done, made it attractive and made something that I wanted to see if I could do. So
you had mentioned if you had known people that were doing this when they were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think many of us did know 100-milers when we were growing up, but now you have two small children. They are going to know a 100-miler when they're growing up. What do you think that means to them?
It's a little too early to know. I mean, my kids are too small to really appreciate what it is. They know I go and run in the mountains, and Sydney talks about wanting to do it too already, even though she's 3 years old and doesn't really quite grasp exactly what it is. I think they'll eventually appreciate it, and hopefully it'll open their eyes to being, the things they can do and the ways they can be active out in the outdoors and spend their time in nature and pushing themselves and challenging themselves.
Right. I think for me, like, my kids are 6.5, and they've run, on the trails without me telling them such. We went for a hike and they start running down the trail, and I'm like, that's how it happens. Yep. You just start running, and they're talking about going to races, and they're talking about doing these things. And when I was 6, I grew up in Buffalo. It's not exactly concrete jungle, but it's pretty close. And I didn't know trail runners, and I just wonder, like, does that mean that they're going to grow up and advocate for the wilderness? Are they going to advocate for, like, we need to save these mountains and trees because I need to run on them? My dad used to run on them. Is that a thing? You know?
I hope so. I wouldn't push them. I certainly will encourage them if they want to run, and want to do the things that I want to do. But I wouldn't push them to follow precisely my footsteps. But I hope I can instill, an appreciation for wilderness and for being out there and for preserving that.
Right. So. The other thing is children, and you run in the masters category.
Yeah. So
you're not an old man, but you're 41.
43.
43. I thought you were 41.
No.
Jeepers.
I was 41 2 years ago.
That's math, folks.
Just had a birthday.
Yep, just had a birthday.
Yeah, so you're 40.
I was 42 at the time of Massanutten.
Okay. So that's a thing.
Yeah.
You have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old to chase around.
Yeah, so I'm late to the parenthood game, by some people's standards.
But you're sort of right on time for the ultra 100-miler game.
Yeah, if you look at the if you look at the Massanutten statistics, the Masters category and Masters Plus category was much more populated than the Open or Submasters. I think I don't know what the percentage was, but the number of people over 40 was much higher, and plenty of them were up high. You know, like at some point late in the thing, Dan Lapada told me, you know, Masters winner is probably out of place at this point. And I was like, yeah, I figured, you know, I'm not even close to the top. I'm not in the top 10 right now, you know. There's got to be a few Masters ahead of me. So I knew there was plenty of competition there. There's plenty of good runners at that distance.
Yeah, it seems like 40. I mean, I'm pretty optimistic. It means in 2 years, I'm going to be an awesome runner. So psyched. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
But there's a thing there. I mean, you're a lawyer. You got 2 small children, and you're running 50 to 60 miles a week sometimes.
Yeah.
How do you do all that? Write it down so I can sell it, because this is going to be a moneymaker.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I'm holding it all together properly, but I am. You know, you got to find ways to do it. I squeeze my running in odd ways. I run, commute to work. At least I was doing it a lot leading up to Massanutten. I do it throughout the winter. During the summer, it gets too hot to do it.
To wear a shirt and tie.
Yeah, exactly. No, to pass with just a bathroom, bird bath after a run. But so that gets me, you know, that can get me 9 miles in a day right there, in time that the kids are in daycare and so forth. I find ways to, I mean, I'm very fortunate that as a lawyer I have a more flexible schedule than most. I can do a lot of my work at home if I want to. I can come and go when I need to. And I don't have to be in court all that much, so I can find ways to make it work and figure it out. My wife, it doesn't help that much that my wife works more hours than I do. She's a doctor with a busier schedule than I am, but she's still very tolerant of me being on half a day each day on the weekends or something like that, so to put in a long run in the morning. And we trade off. We don't get to spend as much time doing fun things together as a result, because I come home and then she goes off to do what she needs to do.
Yeah, tag out.
So we tag
right?
off. Yeah.
Yep, tag, you're it. But you also do stroller runs too.
Oh,
I mean, come on.
Yep.
You're doing
the kids in the double stroller.
You're doing 7:30s, 8-minute miles on with a double stroller. And
that thing rolls pretty well.
Sydney's getting a little, stroller's got to be a little lopsided at this point.
Yeah, the nice thing about the double stroller is I can lean on it a little bit and take some of the weight off of my legs.
But you're doing, so you're doing double stroller, you're doing dog runs, you're doing run commutes.
Right.
You're squeezing it all in.
I squeeze it in where I can.
So do you do you have like a workout? Do you have like, this day I need to go do hill repeats, or this day do you have like a structured training plan, or you're basically trying to squeeze in base miles and then go do something hard? Yeah,
exactly. I would love to have a structured training plan or a coach. I haven't felt like I could really I could make it worthwhile to pay for a coach or something like that, or to try to fit with a really structured training plan, because I do have to. I mean, the flip side of fitting it in where I can is you got to wing it sometimes, and on a day you hope to run commute, it doesn't work out because I don't know, the kids throw a fit and you can't get out the door early enough, or something comes up, and so you just kind of have to do your run on a different day, or work in a half an hour run instead of an hour run or something like that.
Right.
So I kind of wing it. I have rough targets of where I want to be, how many miles I want in a week, and I know that there's different things I need to do, that I can't just always be pouring on base mileage or something like that. I want to hit some tempo runs here and there, or I want to make sure I'm getting plenty of elevation gain or something like that. If I haven't been on the trails in a while, I got to get out on trails to to keep those different muscles working and stuff like that. So
you're sort
but
of
then I
like,
just kind of
you're problem solving essentially, right? Like,
Yeah.
what haven't I done in a little bit?
right, and
Yeah.
what do I need to get more of right now, or what am I doing too much of right now?
So leading up to Massanutten, it's not an easy 100-miler.
No, yeah,
It's Virginia mountains.
yeah,
So leading up to Massanutten, you had been down there twice with Hellgate, and so
Yep.
you understood the terrain.
yeah.
We got some mountains here in New York. Were you trying to do mountain running to train? How do you get ready for Virginia mountains?
Yeah. Ideally, I would have loved to be able to go someplace like the Catskills regularly, because what Massanutten's reputation is being extremely rocky and technical. And I figured, I have a background of running in the Catskills, and that prepares you for technical running anywhere, I think. And so I would have loved to be able to get there, but, spring in Virginia comes earlier than spring in the Catskills, for one. So there's not a lot of the timing doesn't work all that well for running in New York mountains. And two, the busyness of the winter and spring didn't allow me a lot of time to get back there. So instead it's down to the Bristol Hills, which is the closest thing we have to mountains nearby Rochester. And I think that's great preparation. It's slightly less technical than running down those Virginia mountains, but it's enough.
Yeah, but it gets that
it's
turnover.
rough enough.
It gets that
turnover, and it gets you the sustained, climbing up for 1,000-foot climb in a mile or something, or a mile and a half, and then pounding down it and repeating and over again, and that tenderizes the legs and quads
Yeah.
in the way that you need for that kind of thing.
What's the most repeats you've done at Outer Loop in Bristol?
I've never done more than 4.
Never done.
Yeah.
Four's substantial.
4 is actually routine. Normal when I go down there, it's 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I think Travis has told me he's done 6 or more, and so I've wanted to go for more at some point,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I
never
know.
felt like it was worth it.
Mort's done 4.
Uh-huh.
But it's a mile and a half up and it's a mile and a half down.
Yeah.
So, and I do the little run out to the parking lot and come back. So it's 1.7.
You get a little extra.
But a mile and a half, that's 3 miles
Round trip.
round trip. So
Yeah.
if you do 4 of them, that's 12 miles.
Yeah, with 4,000 feet.
6 up, 6 down miles, 4,000 feet of gain and
A little
descent.
more than that, 4,000,
Yeah.
because it's a little over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another place that a lot of us go locals is Hightor
Yeah.
in Ontario County Park,
Yeah.
right? In those areas.
Yeah. Those are 2 places I hit a lot in the last bit of my training cycle, the biggest weeks going into Massanutten. I was down there each weekend. You organized
Dude, you
A little
crushed
run.
that 50K. the podcast 50K, the
Yep.
fat ass 50K.
Yeah, that was I had one good run down there before that, and then I went for that one.
That was awesome. I was so happy that somebody just kind of actually, and then you went over Hightor and down into Conklin's Gully to get some extra.
Yeah, I
there.
actually did something like 35 miles or so, and that was
Yeah.
my biggest run for
Yep.
leading into the 100. Which I if the timing of Massanutten had worked out a little bit better, not if it worked out better, but if it were later in the year, I would have loved to fit in like a 50 miler or something like that
Yeah.
as a training run, but I wasn't able to do that, so I kind of felt like 35 might be a little short for longest run, but it was a good quality,
Yeah.
tough course.
Right, and that's what we have. I think is, we don't have the vertical gain that Virginia has.
Yeah.
But it's the Beast Coast, right? So
Yeah.
it's roots and rocks.
Yep.
Wherever you're going, it's
Yep.
roots and rocks.
Yep.
And so
That day was a lot of not just roots and rocks, but like streams running down the
yeah, it was.
down the trails. And so
Well,
forth.
it was cool. We started in the snow too, which was neat.
That's
you
right.
know?
That's right. I forgot that the first few miles of that were
Yeah.
in the snow, and the trip across whatever that it's called, East Hill, I guess,
Yeah.
where the Boy Scout camp is.
Yeah.
It covered with snow.
Yeah, and so you get snow, you get mud, you
Yep.
get roots and rocks, you get wet rocks, and I mean, and you get
Yeah.
climbing and descending, and
Yep.
because it isn't so long, you're going faster.
Uh-huh.
So I almost feel like, I mean, I don't know, you tell me, I haven't run Massanutten, but that descent down out of OCP, you know, all the way down and then back up to the Boy Scout camp and then down into Naples, that feels like that's a pretty good training ground.
Oh yeah, that descent, particularly the part, I think the East Hill Preserve or whatever that goes down into Naples. That I mean, that has a lot of rocks and loose jumbled up rocks and stuff like
as
that.
I say, none of those rocks have found their forever home. Right?
Exactly.
That's what we say.
You also have an electric fence, which adds another element.
But
Surprise.
you know, the Twisted Branch course, I mean, the first 12 miles of that course are, I mean, that's as rugged and as rooty and as beast coasty as you're going to get.
Absolutely. I think that's a great, I love going down there to train. That can prepare you for mountains pretty much anywhere.
I actually like going down out of OCP more than I like coming back.
Of course, yeah. Well, I've never done that climb back into OCP without being thoroughly exhausted from, having already run 20 miles or something like that. So it's always brutal.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you do it fresh, I mean, So, okay. So you're training, you're smashing all your training together. Mm-hmm. You're managing kids, you're managing professional life, you're managing, life in general, and you're still thinking like 100 miles is I'm going to do 100 miles.
Yeah.
Was it all you hoped it was going to be?
Yeah, I think so. It went as well as I could have imagined going. It wasn't easy by any means. I was certainly exhausted throughout a lot of it and so forth, but I don't think I was ever really as miserable as I feared I would be. I felt like I held it together and managed to just keep plugging away. And
So you took Dan and Amy Lopata were down there with you. I didn't get picked in the draft as your crew, despite 2 successful Hellgate missions.
You're an excellent crew, and I do believe that I told you at one point that
you said
you're welcome.
you said. I mean, Dan, but no, you afterward. I mean, the thing was, Dan knows that course. Mm-hmm. Dan knows the Virginia Happy Trails folks.
Yep.
Dan and Amy were the right people.
Not only does Dan know the course, Amy knows the crewing because she followed Dan around the course twice.
And so they were the perfect people for this race.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you took some experienced Rochesterians down there into Virginia Happy Trails country.
Yep.
Did you soak in any of that, or was this like a kind of surgical, I have family life, I'm getting in on Friday and I'm leaving on Sunday morning?
We soaked it in a little bit. We did leave. I thought at one point about going down Thursdays to have a full day down there beforehand. Then pushed it back, realizing that coming back on Sunday wasn't going to be a great idea. So we ended up going down Friday, getting in just in time, to do the pre-race briefing.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Like you drove,
maybe an hour or two.
You did the 9 hours.
It wasn't as long because Massanutten's a couple hours north of Hellgate.
Right.
But we left, I don't know, at 8 or 9 in the morning or something like that, and got in there at 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Oof.
It's like a 7-hour drive, I think.
Yeah.
It was all in the rain to make it
Better.
a lot of fun.
Did you drive?
I drove a lot of it.
Yeah.
What did my dad take over at the end? Yeah. I think I drove most of it, and then my dad took over.
So I asked because we did that the first time, right? You drove a lot of it the first time.
Yeah.
And we're like, the next time, we're like, you're going to get your rest.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I don't think that, I think you go into these things like, I got this.
Uh-huh.
This is just a race.
Yeah.
This is just 100K in Virginia. Flip-flop, got it,
No, I don't know about that. I mean, I was definitely...
No, I'm not saying that you're going it with like devil may care attitude, but you're driving to a race.
Yeah.
It's you. You're doing your thing and you're driving down there and you're perfectly capable of running 100K and I think,
I'd say I was quietly nervous going into the race. Like I don't think I was visibly freaking out or anything like that, or gonna change what I did on a given in my daily routine or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I was that low level of anxiety was definitely there in the background. That I was kind of tuning out a little bit on the social media and stuff like that, because I just didn't want to deal with it.
You kind of went dark.
And, in retrospect, had a little bit of, anxiety going on.
A little bit of trepidation. I mean, you're going to run your first 100 miler, and it's not like you picked, I don't want to disparage any 100 milers, but it's not like you picked something that you thought was going to be easy.
Right. No,
you went for Massanutten Mountain 100.
Yeah. Picked one that people regard as hard and told me as hard and so forth, and that, put a little bit of fear in me that if I did get exhausted, the technical aspect of it would be extremely hard. So, yeah, I was a little nervous about that, particularly when, as I said, I don't follow a set training plan, but I think about what I would like to have in the bank going into it, and I was short of that. It didn't work out that I was able to get up to the weekly mileage that I wanted. I wasn't so far behind. I knew I was more prepared and had more high mileage weeks than I did for any of my other races, but it still wasn't quite where I had hoped to be. So then I thought that you could be a little nervous, like, oh, did I do enough? Did I do enough?
Yeah, but, I mean, did I pick the right shoes? Are these rocks going to be wet? Is it going to be raining?
What have I gotten myself into?
Yeah. Is there enough bacon at the aid stations? Like, I mean, you could be worried about anything, but it seems like what you do with worry is a little bit different. Okay. Like at least when I talk with you, what you do with worry is you go, this is a thing I could be worried about.
Yeah.
let me stack up all these reasons why I shouldn't be worried about it, and then I'm good to go.
It's there. I mean, the worry is there, but I just kind of put it in the background and realize there's nothing more I can do.
Yeah. So was there a point in Massanutten where you were like, I got it. I got what I came for?
Not until the very end. I mean, I spent the vast majority. I spent the first 40 or so miles just running comfortably and enjoying it. From there, I started to become focused on the clock and the time goals and stuff like that, and thinking about where I needed to be at different times. Not to say that I wasn't enjoying the running or the course or anything like that, but it just started to occupy my mind the whole way. And I was focusing on going sub 24. I'm not sure I would have counted it as a failure or something like that if I ran 25 hours or if I ran 29 hours or something like that, but I knew I wanted to hit that goal, and that was the goal that was kind of driving me, and I just thought...
why?
I don't know why. Let me just finish the thought. It wasn't until basically the last aid station where I felt like... I mean, maybe there were a number of points midway through where I was like, okay, I'm at a point where right now I'm on target, I'm fine, I'm doing well, I keep hitting the goals that will keep me on pace. But it wasn't until the last aid station where I was like, okay, I have 2 hours to run 6 miles, 6.5 miles or something like that. I can do that. There's nothing. The only way I blow this is if I take a header or if I, go horribly off course, and it seemed pretty safe. So that at that point, it was kind of a feeling of relief. I've done what I came to do. I'm going to finish this. I'm going to hit my goal. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge relief. Why was that my goal? That's the history of this sport. It goes back to Gordy Ainsley, for better or not, that he finished running 100 miles at Western States before anybody did it, and he did it right around 20, in just under 24 hours. And it makes for two round numbers: 100 miles, round number, and 24 hours, round number. You know.
Yeah, but if you think about it, like if you do any
the whole
kind
sport's absurd if you think about it too much. Everything.
Yeah, I mean, if you do the math, there's 24 times 60, right? Like the minutes don't add up to the miles, the subtraction and the division, and so that's why I ask, like, why 100 miles and why 24 hours? It's easy for me to ask because 100 miles in 24 hours is like, that's the stuff of unicorns and rainbows to me. So,
yeah, I thought Dan had, I'll put it this way, Dan had these things he kept telling me when I'd see him at various points leading up to the race. He's like, oh, I have these ideas of what you can do there, based on what he thinks of me as a runner and what he thinks of the course and so forth. And, his thinking was, like 20 hours, I should be able to run this in 20 hours. Looking at the history of the race, the only people who run 20 hours on that course are like Brian Rusecki and Karl Meltzer and a couple other people. I'm like,
you've run with Brian Rusecki in the same race once.
In the same race with him way ahead of me. Yeah, maybe I can run faster than 24 hours in a 100 miler. Maybe if it was a race that's more runnable, I would have set a more aggressive goal. Maybe, and in the future, I think I will. But the first time going the distance, setting anything more aggressive than 24 hours just seemed like to be a recipe for blowing up and walking the last 50 miles in. It just seemed like a not smart way to approach your first time on a course, your first time at the distance.
So that makes me think, what do you think your strength in a 100 miler is? What is your strength?
I don't know. I don't think I excel in the elite level kind of thing, like to put me up with the best guys in any one particular thing. I'm a reasonably good climber. I'm a reasonably good descender. I'm reasonably good at plugging along after a while. I'm reasonably good at short, running a 5K or something like that. So it's something that requires just pure running speed. But I'm not up in the upper echelon of any of those things isolated. So I'm more well-rounded, I think, and I think the idea is just to capitalize on all those things on a 100 miler. Is just you got to stay smart and stay within yourself and not get carried away.
Yeah, it makes sense to be able to pull each one of those out when you need them.
Right.
But what do you rely on? What do you like? I got this because I can X.
Well, I think I knew throughout the race that I was running within myself, first of all. And I think I knew from prior experience, although I didn't have 100-mile experience, I had tough 100K and 70-mile experience. And I knew from even before that, from having lots of backpacking experience and mountaineering experience when I was in my 20s, that I can keep plugging along as much as I need to, as long as I don't run myself as long as I don't do something stupid.
As long as you keep a little something in the back.
Yeah, as long as I maintain control and so I wasn't too worried about it. I never hit a point where I was worried that I was going to bonk and never be able to come back out of it or something like that. And I kind of just knew that as long as I just stayed there and kept the energy levels good, that I could just keep going and going and going.
Yeah. So if somebody was to say, like you ran Zane Grey, and if somebody that finished Zane Grey ahead of you said, "I'm coming to run a Massanutten Mountain. I've run on the West Coast my whole life. I've done Moab, and I've done Zane Grey, and I've done gorges, and I've done canyons. What do I need to do to win an East Coast race? What do I need to do?
Someone who's run Zane will be in good shape because Zane is actually a highly technical course for it. There's a lot of West Coast courses that get looked down on by East Coasters as being, I don't know if they're looked down on, but they're just put into this, the single track out there is just smooth dirt.
Buttery soft.
Right, exactly.
That's what
Zane
we're told.
is not that way. So, it's a lot of running up and down, loose rolling rocks and so forth. And so that person will be in good shape in terms of, preparing for an East Coast mountain race. If it was someone who didn't have that kind of experience, but was, used to running on the Western States Trail, or what I know of the Bay Area trails or something like that, I would say they better get prepared for running on rocks and roots, and they got to be prepared to be staring at the ground the whole time, worrying about tripping and falling, cracking their head open.
It's the sore neck after it's the sore neck after long descents.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to learn how to keep your head bobbing and little loose. But like we were just up in the Adirondacks for Whiteface weekend.
Yeah.
And it was raining all day Saturday. And I did 2 high peaks. And it was when it was, we're coming down steep and it's like foot here, foot there, foot here. Yeah. Oh, don't step on that route. That's a sideways route.
Yeah.
You go down the gorge. And then when we got to a part where it opened up, we're all starting and hooting and hollering like, woo, run. Mm-hmm. And then we get to a technical part and it's like football drills, tap, 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 trying to dance through the routes. Mm-hmm. But I don't, like you were saying, like, disparagingly looking at that kind of the West Coast. I don't think it's a disparaging. I just think it's, you don't get to stretch your legs all the time here. Right. That's where I think it's different. You got your eyes and your ears are engaged and your whole body is on high alert so that you don't eat a rock.
Right. And you got to pick your spots where you can open it up and run. There are a couple miles here and there in this course at Massanutten of dirt road or of pavement road, or a couple miles of dirt single track or something like that, and then before you get back to rocks and roots. Yeah. So you pick your spots where you get to open it up, and then you have those where you got to kind of grind it out and hike and so forth. Right. And I think actually that may have been better for me in the long run. Although that makes it harder in a lot of people's eyes that you have the technical stuff throughout, the variety mix it up, but I didn't have to keep on maintaining a steady run for 100 miles.
Yeah, for a guy who's a Swiss Army knife, that's exactly what you need, right?
Right. That's right. So I think it suited well.
Yeah, and I think of they talk about the Europeans mountain running, and it just looks like all they're doing is sliding down mountains full of razor sharp rocks. Yeah. Yes, they're not coming out like fricasseed, but the turnover is crazy, and they're not, their thing is just keep their feet fast as you can go and keep them quick and nimble. Yeah. And then, we always pick on the West Coast as like buttery, soft trails and picturesque and all that. But I think what we have is you have to pay attention and you have to be ready to do 5K speed. You have to be ready to do mountain climbing. You have to be ready to do super fast descending. You have to be ready to do quick we have like what you're saying. You have to be reasonably good at everything. Yeah. Yep. So where was it in 100 miles, everybody gets dark and dreary. Yeah. I'm going to change it real quick. Sure. Everybody gets dark and dreary. Yeah. Is there a place in your distance running when you go, ugh, yuck, I don't like this?
I've certainly had that experience at races where, this isn't fun. Why do I sign up for these races? Why am I doing this? I don't know. I think usually what brings it on is low energy. I mean, combined with Could be some other issue. You have some sort of leg pain or something like that that makes you unable to move the way you want to move. But generally, I think the root cause is just low energy, like not having taken in enough calories, having exhausted yourself, or something like that. So that's kind of when the negative thinking.
You get hangry.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't have a really serious. I didn't have a moment like that. I don't think in this 100-miler, which is
awesome.
Absolutely amazed me.
It's awesome.
I definitely had feelings of exhaustion and feelings of I'm ready to sit down and be off my feet. I can't wait to see the finish line. But the closest I got was kind of like in a long climb late in the 80s or 90s, feeling like, okay, I'm definitely moving slower and slower, and not because of the terrain. I'm just kind of getting sleepy and tired or something like that. Maybe I need to eat some more or something, and I kind of like, so I took a break and I forced down some gels that I had been dreading eating for a long time after the stomach had turned from gels. But and that brought me kind of back to life. But I never had a really dark, I hate this kind of moment.
So another thing that I found is really unique and interesting about you is that you willingly accept crew. Like you are like, hey, you want to come crew me? That's awesome. Yeah. You don't have pacers though. Right? But you're, people want to go to a race with you and help you out. You're like, yeah, sure. Right. I mean, I didn't know you from nobody, and I'm like, I'm totally going down Hellgate with you. I mean,
that was pretty awesome.
We knew each other, but like, I was like, I want to go down Hellgate with you, and you're like, yeah, sure. And how much is it that how much of that is camaraderie versus assistance versus like, I'm going to do this on my own? Like, what are your general thoughts on crewing and pacing and community and people participating in your race?
Right. I love having people come down and crew me and so forth. Like that has been a huge help. It helps so much with race logistics. It helps so much moving efficiently through aid stations and making sure you're actually staying up with what you need to be doing and getting in and out of them, having taken care of all your problems and so forth. And then just having that support when you come into the aid station, people smiling and cheering you on, is a huge lift. It's something to look forward to. And having people out there at the end. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to picture traveling to a race, a big race like this, totally solo. I know a lot of people who do it and enjoy it. I just find that the idea of finishing without those people there to like celebrate with you and so forth, and to enjoy the aftermath with you, to be pretty lonely sounding.
Hooray!
So I've been really fortunate in having people who've wanted to come down and crew, and I've appreciated it so much. Pacing, I feel a little bit different about it. I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have in general, and like I've had people pace me. I've had Ron pace me. I've had Mike pace me, and both of those have been fine experiences and great. And it's nice to have someone running with you. On the other hand, when I'm out there kind of suffering, I kind of just like to be suffering by myself for a little while, at least till I get to the aid station and want to see somebody, I like having breaks.
Oh, you want your cake and
exactly.
You would like to eat it.
Exactly.
Oh, I see. Be my friend just when I need you.
But I get kind of grumpy and miserable. I kind of want to be alone and grumpy and miserable, and grind it out. I don't... I haven't found a method that works for me in a way that kind of like would make me actually do anything different than I would do on my own while I'm out there on the trail. You know? Most of the times, a lot of pacers are deferential to what you want to be doing out there, which is what I would kind of want, and them telling me to do anything other than what I'm doing out there is
Run
probably
now.
I'm probably just gonna not listen to them. So it's just like I'll just go on my own. It might be different in a race that has really long gaps between crude aid stations or something like that, where I could really mess things up if I'm not staying on top of it.
And do you think of it as I mean, you are kind of the run your own race kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
So do you ever think of it as like I need you to keep me on target. I need I need you to keep me at this split for these miles. Do you do that?
No, I don't. I don't know how that would work. I feel like if someone's pushing me to stay on some pace that I'm not able to maintain through my own motivation, it's probably, maybe to put it a different way, I feel like I have the motivation to run as well or on the pace that I can sustain at the time. Mm-hmm. And
you don't need anybody to tell you to do it.
Right. If someone's telling me to do it, they're pushing me to run at a pace that it probably isn't going to be sustainable for me under those conditions or something like that,
Yeah, and I guess that's sort of what I'm poking at. Is it internal motivation? I mean, because you talked about 100 miles in 24 hours is the standard, but also you are doing dog runs, you're doing kid runs, you're doing work commutes. You are motivating yourself internally every day of the week. You don't need anybody to tell you to run to reach your goal.
No, I'm getting frustrated if I can't squeeze in a run. Like if I,
Yeah, I mean that wasn't a question. It was more of a statement, which is like,
right.
You don't need really a pacer to tell you like if you don't pick it up, you're not going to hit 24 hours.
No, that mental pressure is in there.
Yeah,
I have my own.
You said after 40 miles.
That's right. I was sitting there going, if I don't make this next aid station by this time, I'm not going to be able to run this in 24 hours. If I don't make 100K by this time, I'm not going to be able to do it.
Doesn't that take away the joy of running free?
Maybe it probably does. Which is, I guess, why it's good that we're not running. Every run is not a race,
Right. Right.
I just ran, before we came in here, I just ran 4 or 5 miles on the trails without any particular plan about how fast I was going to run or any particular plan about how far I was going to go. I just started running until I realized I better get back to my car so I could get here. I stopped,
Do you have other goals?
No, none. I'm done.
I mean, feel free to share. I mean, want to
in running or in life in general?
Fusion. I don't know. Crystallized solids in the palm of your hand. I don't know. Right. Do you have other
world
goals?
Domination?
Like, how do you do? Like, how do you set a goal? How do you decide this is a thing I want to do? Because 100 miles was decided for you because that's the standard of the sport.
Yeah.
But do you just want to be better every day? Do you pick a target and go, can I get that thing?
I'm not that goal driven that I'm always kind of thinking about being better at something. A lot of times I just want to run or I just want to go have fun. And a lot of days I'm lazy. I'm driven to go get my exercise or something like that, but I'd rather just spend the rest of the day sitting around on the couch or reading a book or having a drink or something like that. I'm not some crazy always motivated person, but I don't know. I don't have in running I don't have other particular goals. I now that I've done 100 and realized I confirmed that I can do it without killing myself or without being absolutely miserable doing it, I now want to improve at it. I want to keep doing it and run them a bit more competitively than I did this time. But I don't know what I'm ultimately capable of, and I'm not particularly set on winning races or, doing XYZ or running a 200 miler now or something like that.
200 miler. But you got that Masters money. You got those fast mountain legs.
Yeah,
right
as
now.
you know, the Masters money is not easy to come by in those long distances. If I wanted Masters money, I should probably go run
5K,
obscure 10Ks or something like that. I don't know.
10Ks seem to have some Masters money.
Yeah.
Or half marathons.
Something like that, right?
You want to puke at the end of your race? That's cool.
Yeah.
Instead of puking during your race.
Yeah. There's, unfortunately, there's people like, I don't know, if you look at the top 10 in some place like Western States, there's plenty of 40-year-old runners doing well.
I don't know. There's a lot of Goose Adventure cutting boards and hammocks.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Can win.
Exactly.
Free pairs of shoes abound.
Yep.
So you're just gonna run now.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say my goals now going forward have been in flux a little bit because I've been struggling more with the recovery than I expected to. It's taken a while to feel like I can run as well as I'd like to run. I just feel my knees and quads have been tight for 2 months afterwards, basically, and it's just kind
of a mountain 100 miler.
Yeah, maybe it's not surprising.
It's a mountain 100 miler. I mean, come on, Superman.
But I started immediately thinking like, okay, maybe I could run another 100 miler in the late fall or something like that, and then now I'm thinking, maybe I should start thinking about next year. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think 1 mountain 100 miler a year is it's not. I mean, you're not goal oriented, right? I mean, that's what you just said. You're not some sort of masochistic goal oriented person.
Well, I do have a goal. I would say of wanting to be able to keep doing this for a while, and I know based on what it's taken me to recover from this one, that rushing out to do too many in a year would be a bad way to go about that. So
yeah, so find a local 100K that's as mountainous as Virginia.
Yeah. So Twisted Branch is coming up in August, and I maybe got a little ahead of myself in signing up for that, and I've kind of been feeling it out. And I'm going to be feeling it out the next couple of weeks about whether or not I'm ready to to go out and run that. And I really don't want to put it off another year. I wanted to run it last year and I couldn't, so it'll bum me out if I don't. But if I can't get a few solid weeks of training in beforehand.
Well, you started with a 5 miler today.
That's right. Yeah.
All right.